Hi everyone, and welcome to another one of my expert Q&As here in Eden. And I'm thrilled this morning to be welcoming Nikie Piper. Good morning, Nikie.
Good morning. It's great to be here. Thank you.
And it is a gorgeous, gorgeous morning today. We were just saying it's crisp and cold and dry.
Yes, dry, definitely. Yes, it makes such a change, doesn't it, at the moment?
It certainly does. And I don't know about you, but I really find that the weather definitely affects me. But having a dry day without the wet and the wind and the rain really lifts my spirits. So
It was beautiful out this morning. Yes.
yeah, so we've dragged ourselves back into our homes to
Yes.
to do this Q&A rather than being out with our animals out in the sunshine. So, Nikie, you're an expert in journaling. And I brought you on today, obviously, because we've just released our 2 journals. And thank you so much for your help in helping me to work out what to do and how to do it. So they're out there now and available. So I thought it would be absolutely perfect opportunity, especially with the new year coming and people kind of want to start afresh and do new things and get great habits and stuff like that, to find out some more about you. So tell us a little bit about your journey. I hate using the word, but it is journey. Tell us a bit about yourself and how you got into journaling.
How did I get into journaling? I kind of fell into it, really. I was going through a particularly rough patch in my life. I think we were somewhere around about 2017. I'd been to my first major personal development event, and that actually just really made an impact on me. So much so, I mean, the saying that I took away from there was actually how you do anything is how you do everything. So it was a T. Harv Eker event, if anybody's heard of him. And it was a fantastic 3 days, and it really blew my mind because it was the first thing like that I'd ever been to. And the Monday morning came and I was lying in bed and I was just really not wanting to get up. So, really, really missing the energy of the 3 days that I'd had with completely different people, completely different mindset, and completely different way of doing things. And I was lying in bed feeling particularly sorry for myself that morning, Monday morning, thinking I really don't want to do this. And it wasn't until, while I was at the event, I didn't actually realize the effect of how you do anything is how you do everything. So it was on that Monday morning, I was lying there thinking, and this little voice seemed to come into my head saying, how you do anything is how you do everything. And I just sat bolt upright, and it was like, oh my God, for whatever's sake, if I'm lying here doing this, where else is this showing up in my life? So from then on, I really started looking at personal development. And then what I discovered from there is that all the successful people that I admired had one thing in common that I could pin on, and that was they were journaling. So I thought, okay, let's have a go at this. And it didn't come easy, but I carried on with it. And what I wanted was actually something that would prompt me to write what I wanted to write about, and I could not find it. So what I decided to do was actually make my own, and that's what I did. So that's how I came about to create my own journals. And yeah, so it just went from there. So from actually being grateful for what's going on in your life, and also all the feelings and the journey that you've been on, and picking out the good parts is key, really, to sort of sorting the emotions out, because what you think about comes about. So the more that you focus on the bad things, the more bad things are going to happen. So what I started to do was to journal about all of them. I've been made redundant twice. My husband and I split up at the end of 2013, and that was emotionally traumatic for me. I didn't have an income. My business was about to fold. I had a part-time business, and that was about to fold as well. And everything just seemed to be end of the world, really. So I started to try and find the lessons that I had learned from that process, and the fact that I was, also, out of work, didn't really have anywhere to live, and about £60,000 worth in debt. It was a big leap of faith. And also, what I did from there is that I I spent quite a lot of time thinking about how I wanted my life to be, and being reasonably techie. What I actually did was I dumped all of my thoughts about what I wanted to do onto, basically, I built a website and didn't publish it. It was just an outlet for creativity and a place to dump stuff that I wanted to do in a format that fitted my mind. And then I didn't publish it, and it just sat there for 3 years or so, or maybe a little bit less. But it was at the beginning of this year that I rediscovered that website. And when I was reading through it, it was like, oh my God, this is what I journaled about. This is what I wanted to do. So now I have a journaling business and a coaching business. I talk to people about mindset, and I help people just refocus from all of the negative into positive.
Awesome. That's amazing. And I love hearing people's stories where they've overcome major adversity, and normally everyone needs some kind of massive shake up and wake up call and all of that before they do something about it. But it's lovely sometimes when actually people don't need that. They just actually find ways of making things better, and that's kind of where we want to help people, I suppose, isn't it? So tell us, so a lot of people talk about journaling, but I know it's one of those things where actually you can do it in lots of different ways. There's lots of different types of journaling. Some people think it's like just keeping a notebook. Other people think it has to be really structured. Other people want it done specifically each day. Others will do it whenever. But tell us what, in essence, journaling actually is as a concept.
As a concept, it's a place to keep track of your emotions, your thoughts, and your feelings. So it's a bit more than a notepad. How you do it is really up to you. And as you say, there are so many different ways of doing something out there. So what might work for somebody doesn't work for somebody else. And equally, I find for me the best time to do it, is first thing in the morning. And actually, I do it after I've been out with the dogs, and that's sort of my time. And then I journal gratitude mostly, so that tends to be my focus. But journaling can just be a release from anything that's on your mind, really. It can actually help you structure maybe something that you're going through that you don't really quite know how, and it's, if you just start writing, then the words come. So I find a mixture of structured journaling and free flow or freestyle works for me. So the way that I do it in my journals is that I have 4 or 5 sections that I kind of really want to do every day. And I find what a lot of journals are missing, the pre-done ones, are the essence of you, and being grateful for yourself, and thanking yourself for everything that you do. So journaling then becomes a process to appreciate what you're doing, which then changes the chemicals in your brain, and then puts a whole different spin on things, rather than we're all so busy doing 101 different things, and I haven't got time for that. But actually, I think if you make time for that at whatever point of time of day that works for you, even just 5-minute pockets 2 or 3 times a day, it really doesn't matter. It's just about taking time out and thinking, okay, what am I grateful for? How am I feeling? What are the things I want to bring in my life? So, so you've got your gratitude, you've got your intentional journaling, you've got a whole raft of different ways of being able to journal. And I think it's just finding a way that you are comfortable with, that sits with you, that you can do. So the last thing you actually want to be feeling is when you're journaling it's just something else to do. It's I've got to do this. It's more of a I'm grateful that I get the time to do this, so that I can be me on these pages. And intentional journaling, it is what I did with that website brain dump that I did. It is thinking about all of the things I want to bring in my life and how I want to be, and the circles that I move in. But I had no idea when I did that how. So And people, this is a very common question I get asked, is what is journaling? How do I do it? Well, actually, it's however you want to do it. And it's finding a way that works for you. So, I mean, you've got bullet journaling, you've got free flow, you've got 101 different structures. And it also depends on what it is that you feel stuck with, really.
Yep.
I mean, cool. I've gone through different phases of how I journal. And then I tend to come back to the core around, how am I feeling? What am I grateful for about me? And setting my intention for the day as well. And also I do a 2 or 3 minute exercise before I go to bed about, what am I most proud of today? What have been my main achievements? What can I let go of, that bugged me? And, and what are my happy moments? And I think that's also a really important thing that you end the day on. It's just a bit of reflection.
Awesome. Okay, so that's great. So that's kind of a little bit about the how and a little bit about the when. And again, like with anything, it's always about finding the way that works for you. So what is it that means that journaling works then? Why does journaling benefit so people, and why is it that so many really successful people, this is one of their key elements of performance?
Yeah, I think it's just about taking the time to work out and address the mixture of feelings, especially if you're going through changes or you're setting up a business, or you've got a big event coming up or something like that. It's just actually working out and parking all that stuff that's going on in your brain, parking it in somewhere where you think, well, actually, I've got rid of that. And also, if you're future intending and journaling, it's seeing past that thing that's coming up in your life, and you think, well, actually, I've got this big presentation coming up, and I'm expecting 150 people, and it's how I want to feel while I'm doing that. It's how I want those people to be. It's the outcome that I want from that event, and just seeing that. So I think it's about planting seeds in your subconscious, I think is why it works. And also, that's why it's, what you think about comes about. It's successful people don't dwell on the things that have gone wrong. They pick the lessons out and they move forward.
And how have you managed to do that then? So you've overcome adversity and you've overcome things, and you're where you are today, and great business and things like that. How has it really helped you in to actually make stuff happen? Because a lot of people might be sitting there thinking, well, it's very nice writing this stuff down, and kind of, it's like that concept of write yourself a check and the money will appear, the kind of manifestation and things like that. But what is it that you've experienced that has really made a difference for you?
What is it that I've experienced? I think it's just a relief that actually I can get out of my own head. And with all the challenges that I've been through, I'm not always positive. I like to think that I try to be, but believe me, I have had times where I think, what is the point of all this? Where I've just been in streams of tears, and I can't do this, and what is the point of life? And to actually just be able to acknowledge those and park them on paper. So for me, it was like, well, actually, when I look back over how I was feeling, I can see how far I've come. But actually, if I hadn't have kept that, it's not a visible change to me because I'm in it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that I work a lot with clients. They're encouraged to do journaling, or at least somehow to keep a record of things, even if they haven't quite got into full journaling and things like that yet. Because so often people move the goalposts. They say they want to achieve something, and they actually do achieve it, but because they've moved the goalpost and they're heading towards the next one, they've forgotten and they haven't even noticed. And if there's no way of being able to stop and reflect and look back and go, God, do you know what? Actually, I've come really far, and not just always be future focused. So what's that kind of element that you found the most useful then, or find other people find it as well in journaling?
Yeah. I think, it's just something that I fell into. So actually, challenging questions to my processes. What do I? Yeah. For me, it was. Yeah, I mean, I think it is just a place where, actually, this is a point in time. This is how I felt. This is how I want to feel. And then if I look back, even just, at last month's entries, the things that I was going through, when we're thinking about, I'm going away for Christmas. Well, actually, no, I'm not, because the Scottish government decided that I'm not allowed to go that way. And being able to put those feelings and that frustration and, well, what is the benefit then, which was really hard one, actually, because I've not seen my parents for over a year. Well, the benefit is, I've got a bit more time at home. It's given me an extra 2 weeks to actually pack up my house because I'm moving in 2 weeks' time. I think it's taking away the focus of victim syndrome, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And when you were talking about that and you were saying, it can be really difficult sometimes to come up with a positive. It's this when you have got something that's asking specific questions that's making you think about things, it makes you do the stuff we call like reframing, which is looking at it in a different light, a different perspective on it. One of the things in my journal that repeats every single day is 5 things you are positive about before you do any of the rest of it, because it sets your mind and it sets that frame of mind into positive, so that you go, well, actually, maybe it's not all that bad. Now I can look at some of the bits that I'm not quite so happy with, but feel a bit better about them and be more future focused or solution focused, rather than going, it's all terrible, victim mode, it's happening to me and I don't like it. And one of the phrases that I love, which was key just then to what you were saying, which is, when you have a journal that's got the questions in, that's guiding you and asking you, you don't think of them yourself, which is quite nice. But also, when we design journals, we know that the brain is like Google, and whatever question you ask, it's going to go and give you the answer back. So if you're asking what we call unresourceful questions, like, why is it always happening to me? Why is it terrible? Why is this going on? I'm never going to get out of it. Why is it up? Your brain will give you all those answers, won't it?
Yeah.
So when it's a well-designed journal with, like yours and mine, and things that are designed with mindset in mind and knowing this stuff, it sets you up and guides you through that process.
Yes. And, and I've always said, tell me why and how you can, not why and how you can't, because can't is going to keep you stuck. So I
like that one.
Can't is going to keep you stuck. And my parents always used to say when I was a kid, I can't do this. I said, there's no such word as can't. And that has stayed with me. And so I cannot then. No such word. You can if you want to. And that's what I had when I was growing up. No such word as can't.
Yeah, and that's a great thing to have when you're growing up. Anyone that did grow up with, well, you won't be able to do that, will you? Or that's a bit difficult, isn't it? Or aren't you lucky? And all those kind of things. They've got to get out of that mindset. And this is another reason why journaling works really well, because it's the small incremental changes, isn't it? It's not the big stuff. I mean, sometimes the big stuff does make a difference to people, but the stuff that really changes behavior and habit and mindset is the little drips, isn't it? The little bits. And this is where daily journaling, ideally, but it doesn't matter. You can do it every other day. You do it once a week if you really want. But consistent journaling provides...
So the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step.
Yeah. And so in your experience, how often would you say is kind of a good practice to start really making a difference using journaling?
Well, actually, I think if you start with an intention to do 15, 20 minutes every day as part of a routine, morning, lunchtime, evening, whenever you can, and maybe give yourself a challenge to actually, I'm going to start this and do a month's worth and see what difference it's going to make at the end of it. That is the biggest thing that people find is and it's a resistance to doing it, because I think they're a bit scared about what it's going to uncover. So then the barriers go up, and I haven't got the time, and all the excuses. And this is why I said, tell me why you can, not why you can't. It's how can you make a little bit of 15 minutes and just shut yourself in a room or in the toilet if you have to, or it's it's a horse environment, so go and lock yourself in the stable with a book. It's or sit on the edge of the field. Find the time, because you won't regret it. It's more about addressing the resistance to doing it. Why do you have resistance to doing this? It's not, if you knew the benefits, you would find the time.
Yeah, and that's like with everything, isn't it? There'll always be a perfect excuse unless you really want to do it. So where's the motivation? And how would you suggest finding that motivation then? So, because motivation comes from two areas. It comes from away from and towards. So things we don't want, we move away from. Things we do want, we move towards. Now, everyone is wired differently, and we need a bit of both sometimes. Some people need more of one than the other. So there's probably quite a lot of people that start journaling because they're towards motivated. They want something. They want change to happen. They want it. But what about the people that are currently in situations they don't like, who are thinking, you've got to be kidding me. Seriously, you're telling me sitting down and writing something in a book for 15 minutes is actually going to make a difference to my life? Like, really? What's that all about? What kind of thing would you say to that kind of thinking?
Yeah, don't knock it till you try it. It's a bit like saying I don't like it because I've never had it before. I had a boyfriend once, and long time ago, and I love cheese and always have, and the whole household as I grew up, with you have cheese after dinner, and I love blue cheese especially. And I think it was at the beginning of our relationship, we come around for dinner and out comes a cheese board, and it goes round, and he would not touch the blue cheese, and he says, I don't like it. And my dad said, well, why don't you like it? Have you ever had it before? And he said, no, but I don't like it.
Yes, I used to have one just like that, actually, and we'd sit there going, well, try it. I don't like it. You don't know, you haven't tried it. What are you on about? Yeah, no, very true, very true. Yeah. So the brain often sets up these resistances because of fear. Yes. Of worry. So what are some of the fears and worries? You mentioned earlier that people get scared what they're going to uncover. And I think this is really common with mindfulness, with journaling, with anything that makes someone stop and actually go inwards, because the fear of emotion in some people is really quite strong. Like they're worried that this flood of something's going to come out that they're never going to stop. And our job as coaches is to hold that space for them, whether that be in a session or by providing them with something like a journaling tool or other tools where they can take their time to do it. So what's been your experience of that resistance and how people have pushed through it or changed, or even maybe even yourself, that actually you're still alive and it's okay because a feeling never killed anyone? Like, yeah, that's what
yeah, and I had massive resistance. I started it and I would do a bit and think, oh, this is ridiculous. I don't like how it makes me feel. But actually, I think at the beginning, if you do have that resistance, it's just a question of pushing through. And that's what I did. I thought, right, I'm going to make this a habit. I want to do this. I don't like how it's making me feel. I don't like having to feel pressured about doing it. But actually, when I look back, it was a bit sporadic in the first few months, but I did it. It wasn't until I started trying to, making a bit more time to do this every day. And then I look back at what I did originally and I think, well, actually, I'm really glad I wrote that because I don't feel like that anymore. But at the time, you don't want to admit that. Or I didn't, in my case, I didn't want to admit that I was an emotional wreck and falling apart, and that my life was disintegrating. It could have been so easy for me to have just, given up and, this doesn't work and be a victim of life. But the sporadic bits that I did do, when I sat there and, maybe 2 months or 3 months later, I look back and I think, I don't know why I don't do a bit more of that. So I think it's actually just proving to yourself that it will work, and everything that comes up is better out than in. Don't keep it bottled up inside. So if you're feeling annoyed that something hasn't gone your way, write it down. But then you can follow that on with well, what can I learn from this, and how can I do it differently next time? What does it mean to me? Why do I feel like this? And these are all ways of getting over that.
Yeah.
And I did, it took me a long time to actually bring this in as, a daily thing that I do. And I do it most days. And it really depends how early I start in the morning, what clients I've got, but I do it most days. I do it pretty much every day.
Cool. And I think that's so key. I always talk about the two things. We talk about the emotional cup, and then I call it the emotional champagne bottle, because I think it makes more sense to me. And the emotional cup is this cup that we've got that gets a bit full, and when it's too full, you can't put any more else in, and it overflows, and that's not good. But the analogy I like to use is the emotional champagne bottle, which is that we've all got these champagne bottles going around, and they're filling up all the time. But the problem with them is when they get full, and then we have to put a lid on them to stop it spilling over the top, the pressure that then comes trying to keep that lid on is actually emotionally more draining and uses more energy. And that's where we end up with burnout and performance issues and stress and anxiety and all this stuff. Because actually all we needed to do was carefully take the cork off, which is what journaling helps to do, and pour some of the stuff out. So we've still got this stuff going around because we're human, but we're able to just tip it out every now and again, sort it out, no problem, leave some space for the next bit. And that journal to me sounds like pouring it out.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it also starts with, do you actually want to change? Because it doesn't matter how many tips and suggestions that you get, how many tools that you've got. If you don't actually want to feel any different, to be any different, to change anything in your life, then it's never going to happen.
Yeah, so true. And so many people are so resistant, actually, of, better the devil you know. It's the boiling the frog syndrome, isn't it? That actually you can pop a frog in hot water and it will jump out because I'm not going in that, or it will try to at least anyway. Whereas if you put a frog in cold water and then you slowly raise that temperature, it just gets used to that. And then when it gets a bit warm, it's like, well, can't do anything about it now, and it just kills over. Apparently, I don't know, never actually tried this, but it's a good analogy.
No, you're right.
And I think so many people are worried that when they realise they're in hot water that they don't want to be in, because they have got to change something and they're not prepared to do that. But if we look at my guys, who very much are interested in performance and sport and doing their best and being happy and successful and whatever that is in their riding, which is a sport in that respect. How does journaling help with the kind of the more tangible goals and the kind of things we want to achieve? Because we talked a lot about the emotional element, which is really important. How can we use journaling to actually help us achieve goals that we want, tangible things that we'd like, and progress us forward in life? Because clearly you've done that, because you're where you are now from where you were. It must have somehow helped you. How do you do that bit?
I got really clear on what my intentions were. I let go of how on earth I was going to do anything. I was stacking shelves in Sainsbury's, for heaven's sake. I let go of how I was going to get to there to doing what I do now. Is all I had the intention, and I got really clear about what it was that I actually wanted to do. So, your events and the outcomes that you want from your riding, get really, really clear on what it is that you want the outcome to be. How do you want to feel about it? How do you want to see? What people are there? What can you hear going on around you? So you get really, really clear on exactly what it is that you want, and just leave it to the universe, So manifest it, but actually you've got to be able to see it. Otherwise the universe doesn't actually know what it's going to give you. And then let go of how, because you need to follow your heart, because you will be led to get to the point that you actually want. And it's like me with dumping all that stuff on that web page. I have no idea how I was going to get to be speaking to people, to be running events, to be writing books and creating journals and using photography and all that kind of stuff. I had absolutely no idea. Is all I used to say was, if I could do this for a living, then that's what I would do. And I just wrote down my end results. And the process that I go through at the end of every year about now is I review my year. So 2020 has been a bit tough for a lot of us. And it could be really, really easy to focus on all of the negative shit that's been going on, basically. So what I do is I look at all of the different elements in my life. So it's a bit like a wheel of life, and what are the key elements in my life? And I look at the lessons that I've learned and my takings, and where have I grown throughout that year. And then I look in the same sections into where do I want that to go in the future, and just an overview, if you like. So that's generally what I do at the end of every year. I have actually put something together to do that, and I've also included for me. I mean, I did this mainly for me, and then it occurred to me that actually other people might like to do this as well. And set myself some challenging questions around my mindset, and where do I want, and what frame of mind do I want to be going into 2021 in. So
that sounds awesome. How do people perhaps get hold of that or find that out from you? Or because that sounds just a fabulous thing to be doing right now.
Yeah. So I've done I put it together in a PDF. So it's about 90 pages. I've tried to keep the colour quite light because obviously people are going to be printing it. I can share a link to the landing page. So literally just it will just put your details in there. Click the button to pay. It's just $4.99. And then you can print it out as many times as you want. So you've got 90 pages of sort of letting go and bringing in for those that want to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Because, one of the things, I mean, obviously everyone this year has had things that have stopped, things they can't do anymore and things like that. And our certainly equine industry has been start, stop, because, we've been allowed to go out, then we haven't, then we've been allowed to compete, then we haven't, then we've been allowed to train, then we haven't, then we can, some people can now compete and others can't, and it is all over the place. And so I think, as horse riders, we're very resilient anyway, because we've got these animals that we might have this fabulous goal, and then they turn around and go, oh no, I've come in on 3 legs now, actually you can't do it, so we're quite resilient in that respect. But what we're not very good at actually doing is stopping, reflecting, reviewing and things like that. So it's kind of very future focused a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So I think that as a tool is just fabulous. So we'll share the link with people so that they can have a look at that review of the year. So is there anything else that you think we haven't really covered, or you'd love to tell people about, or that you're really passionate about in terms of this topic, or anything that you particularly would love to cover?
I think we've covered quite a lot. It's just don't knock it till you've tried it, I think. And you're never going to know unless you actually sit down and do a process. There are people out there that it doesn't work for, but I don't think there are that many. I think it's more around whether you really want to see the benefits from it or not. And all of the successful people, I think, ever do it, and I think, well, they can't be wrong.
Well, exactly. That's kind of success, doesn't it? Yeah. Cool. Okay. So I think we're going to do journaling January. I'm going to be encouraging everyone to just try it for January, see what they think, see what happens, because after a month, they're going to probably start to notice some things. So, we might have all these crazy months of doing different things. They can go vegan in January if they want to. They could journal if they want to. Maybe both. Who knows? So thank you so much, Nikie. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on, and for sharing this lovely thing that is talked about all the time, but kind of demystifying a little bit and talking about what it really is, which is basically just an opportunity for you to kind of go inwards and reflect a little bit each day to get much more positive outcomes, better mindset, and just a better way of feeling and being, really. Yeah, absolutely. And who wouldn't want that? Exactly. So if anyone wants to get hold of you or ask you any questions about anything, what's the best way that they can do that? You can contact me at awesome@nikkiepiper.com. Visit my website, which is nikkiepiper.com. Or just find me on Facebook. Funnily enough, Nikie.Piper. That's always nice when it's that simple. People remember that. Cool. And it's Nikie is Nikie. Yeah, and Piper, Piper. Yeah. Perfect. So those listening in on the podcast as well, obviously you know how to spell that now to get a hold of Nikie in all those different ways. So thank you so much, Nikie. It's been an absolute joy having you on. If anyone's got any questions, they can always drop you a message or ask you anything. And
Yeah.
we look forward to some more potential collaborations and things throughout the year.
Absolutely. Yes. Look forward to it. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.